morning, everyone. I just want to thank James for asking Sean and I to do this. And I want to be forthright in saying that we didn't know what we were doing, and we probably still don't. But that sort of goes into the whole organized chaos that drew us into KUMC, so bear with us. My name is Jodie, and this is my husband, Sean. We have been attending KUMC for right at 7 years. At the time when we joined, we had our about 15-month-old daughter, Marley, who is now 8. And in that time, we've had our daughter, Harper, who is 5. And this is truly has become not just our church family, but our family. And today we would like to share just a little bit about our individual faith journeys, and then a little bit about how that has led to our combined journey.
I guess give a little bit of my background. I was raised from pretty much 3rd grade on in Laredo, Texas, and that's pretty much my memories. My parents always went to church. It was always every Sunday we'd go to the Laity United Methodist Church in Laredo, and it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't you're going to church today. It was just, that was everyday life. It's Sunday morning, you're going to church. And that was just accepted. I never thought about it being something different. I thought everybody did it. It was just something people did. And so growing up, I was, as you might have, I wasn't the perfect child. You might have, if you know me at all, you might know that about me. I was the fidgety seat kid, and I was the kid that laughed inappropriately during church, but it was an extension of my home. I wasn't asked to leave, so I guess I did okay. But growing up, I wasn't the best. I went and I like to say I had a whole lot of fun in my teens and 20s. I also had a whole lot of really bad things happen because I had a whole lot of fun. And I went through a period that I had a lot of lows in my life, but for some reason I would still make it to church on Sunday morning. It was because that was just instilled in me that that's where you go. I mean, some days I probably shouldn't have been out in public, but I was in church, sitting in the pews on Sunday morning. It was a thing that was just who I was. I may have been. I think during that time I was lost as a person, but I knew that God had a plan for me, and even if I didn't feel close to God in my heart, if I didn't feel close to God in my life, I knew I could at least go to church and be close to where God was. And so that, for many years, kind of kept me going along. And that's my childhood in a few minutes.
And I grew up in a very, very small town. As I like to say, no Dairy Queen, no stoplights, less than 500 people. With that being said, it was a small Polish Catholic community, and I was neither of those. The only church in the town I grew up in was a Catholic church, and we were Lutheran. My mother was raised Catholic, but my dad was raised Lutheran, and he always instilled upon us. I think it was more of a suggestion now that I'm an adult and I can see where he was coming from. If you choose to get married and you believe, go with the one in the marriage who has the stronger connection to the church. And by and large, that was Sean in our relationship. I grew up in a Lutheran church, you would say. It was in a town 20 minutes away. It was a small church, but because we didn't live there, we never could have that connection. And nowadays, things are different. 20 minutes is nothing. 20 minutes 40 years ago, that was an awful lot. It was time and distance, and I just never felt that connection that I wanted, and I knew there was something missing, and I just never knew what it was. When I was about 13, my family bought a restaurant, and the little bit of church going we had pretty much went out the window, because it was a 6-day-a-week restaurant, and going to church wasn't in the plans. We became, like they say, CEOs. We were Christmas and Easter churchgoers, but during that whole time, I had so many questions, and as we were talking about this, I remember sitting so many times and going, okay, I'm here, and I'm here because of my mom and dad, and they're here because of their parents, and they're here, and going back, but it's like, how did we get here? None of this makes sense. And I just had so many questions about God and Christianity and religion and the earth, and my head would just swim. And when I started to go to junior college, my advisor, I think it was just in conversation, I just sort of mentioned, I just have so many questions. I don't know. I know there's something more, and I don't know what that more is. And she sat down with me and a good friend of mine every Monday afternoon, and we would talk about faith and beliefs and Christianity. And for the first time in my life, I realized sort of what that more was. And I was sort of getting that little direction on how to get there. It wasn't until a few years ago that I found out that this advisor was a Methodist, because she never made it about religion specifically. She made it about life and your walk and your journey. And with that, I went through college, made sure I met a lot of different people. I never was a churchgoer, though, because I just didn't know. I was scared, I was embarrassed, and I didn't know how do you start. And that's when Sean and I met. It was immediate, the confidence he had. He's not real boastful. He's a goofball, but he's not boastful. And this is just, this is who I am. Whatever at the time, I'm 25, and yeah, I'm a non-traditional student, and I've had full-time jobs, and I'm back in college, and I sort of, he just carried himself so well. And to me, I was just so interested by that. And then when I found out he grew up in the church, he might not be able to tell you scripture and whatever his sermon was about, but he knew those people. And that intrigued me. And so that sort of was like, well, I want to know what Methodists do. And so he brought me in on this ride to becoming a Methodist.
Where do I pick up from there?
Well, you see, okay, we decided how long after we started to date. It was never, and we've tried to figure this out these last couple weeks. We never talked about going to church together. It just sort of happened. We knew we were in love. We found it, Sean attended off and on during college, the San Marcos, the First United Methodist Church in San Marcos. And we started to attend there before we were married, because we knew we wanted to find a church home. We didn't know why. We just knew we wanted to. And we love the church. We love the building. We love the history. We love the pomp and circumstance of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful church. But we never felt that individual connection. We were very, very lucky, and we continue to be very lucky that Sean was very close to his childhood pastor growing up, Pastor Virgilio Vasquez, and then the pastor that married us, Suzanne Field-Rab, saw something in us that we never saw as a couple. When we were in our marriage counseling class and pre-marriage counseling, she's like, on paper, y'all do not match up. But I sit here with you, and I see there is the connection, and I see there is this love and this understanding and this friendship, and I wholeheartedly support this union. So we were very blessed by her, and we met Pastor Rob Clopton, who was a new pastor at San Marcos Church, and his first service was the most amazing service because an older member of the church passed out, and he didn't know until about 8 minutes in. He just thought that he was getting a really good crowd reaction. So he's a very memorable pastor to us because he was new to church and he was going through this journey, and we were new participants on this journey. And then when Marley was a baby, we met Pastor Eddie Valverde, who basically told us, y'all need to go. We're like, what do you mean we need to go? He's like, y'all are ready. Y'all need to go find a church closer to you where you can get involved because y'all are ready. What does that mean? Are you kicking us out of church? He's like, no, y'all need to find a church family. And we did. We didn't know. We'd lived in San Marcos, or in Kyle, for about 4 years at that point. We didn't know this church existed. And one day we just sort of drove by, and there it was. And we walked in the door, and as I said earlier, it was organized chaos. And we loved it because that's our life, and that's many of y'all's lives. We felt at home. I look out and I see these faces of these people, and I think of all the people who've come and gone, and I think that all of you are my family now. For a long time, and I look at some people sitting over there, for a long time they were my church friends. And when the church went away, they became just my friends. And then they became just my family. And it's amazing how well we fit into this church. And I just want to thank you all for that.
I guess I could say more, but I don't need to. But I guess I'll echo the fact that this is our family. This is much more than our church. I guess the one thing that I've always kept with me is the church is not anything to do with the building. The church is the people, and the people is what kept me coming back to church. The people is what gave me the faith. The people is everything, and the church is a building. The buildings will come and go, and your home church will come and go. But when we walked into this church that day 7 years ago, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was home, and it has been that way ever since. And I just thank God that we found this church and have met all of you and have been blessed to be able to serve here.